What's up everybody, Matt Maran, formerly Subaru WRX fan here to give you all the details on the all-new 2022 Subaru WRX as well as giving you my thoughts on it. Now, even though I was just on the BRZ launch event a couple of weeks ago, I was not invited to the WRX first look event, so I cannot bring you any in-depth, in-person kind of impressions here on the new WRX. But like always, I will be objective and just, be brutally honest with you guys about everything that we have here as far as the information. And it is definitely a mixed bag for the new WRX. There's a lot of nice improvements. There's also a lot of head scratchers here as well. So anyway, first we'll talk about the styling. I'm not going to dwell on the styling too much because I know that's subjective, but I just have to say the body cladding is way too much. I mean, I was worried about this whenever we saw the teasers, and now seeing the full thing, it didn't get any better. So, I mean, yes, I know some people are saying, the Visive concept had similar cladding on it, except on the Visive concept, it was glossy carbon fiber. And if you talk to any enthusiast and you tell them, hey, let me swap your carbon fiber trim for rugged plastic, none of them would be excited about that. That's what Subaru did here. So that is why it is a letdown, in my opinion, to have this. It's also funny that this actually has more body cladding than a Subaru Crosstrek. It's not even just as bad as a Crosstrek. It actually has more. The Crosstrek actually has a painted rear bumper for the most part. And so here in the WRX, you have a completely unpainted rear bumper. So let that sink in. The vehicle that is a four-door sports sedan has a more rugged look than the vehicle that actually is meant to go off-road and is used by owners off-road way more. I get that the WRX, has its rally heritage. Trust me, I've been a fan of the WRX for the past, 20 years. But still, this just seems weird to me, to just have a completely unpainted rear bumper. It honestly just looks a little cheap as well, to be totally honest. So that's my thoughts. Again, take it for what it's worth. I know, everyone has different thoughts there on that, but I think, otherwise there's actually a lot to like about this design. I really actually like the front end. I like the more defined hood scoop there. I like that you have functional front fender vents, which are actually aluminum, by the way, they said now. So that looks good. The side profile looks good. I like how you kind of have the flared rear fenders there and stuff. The back end looks a little too flat to me. It looks like it almost got rear-ended or something. I just wish they would have added a couple more inches of length to the back end there to make it a little more balanced looking in the side profile, in my opinion. But I actually do like the magma inspired taillights, they say, with the way the inner part there is kind of textured and stuff, which is cool. And I like the quad exhaust tips and stuff. There's a lot to like there, especially, like I said, front end looks awesome. It's just that back end I'm not totally crazy about, and the cladding. And the cladding is not optional, by the way. There is no way to get rid of it. So unless you do a full body kit on this thing from the aftermarket, otherwise you are stuck with this rugged cladding. And so anyway, that is the styling. We will move on from that, but be sure to let me know what you think of the styling in the comments below. Mechanically, though, it's also a mixed bag. So it does get the larger 2.4-liter turbo boxer engine from the Ascent. It now has an electronic wastegate as well, which is great. But despite getting an extra 400 cc of displacement, it only gains 3 horsepower. 3. So, all of our hopes of having higher horsepower over the, past couple of years of speculation here, it gets 3 horsepower. So it has a total of 271 horsepower now, and it makes 259 pound-feet of torque, which is just 1 more pound-feet of torque than the old WRX. And not only is it just 1 more pound-feet of torque more, but it also actually makes less torque, 18 less pound-feet of torque to be exact, than every other Subaru motor that uses this engine. So, in the Outback, the Ascent, the Legacy, it makes 277 pound-feet of torque. Here, it somehow goes down to 259. So they actually made it worse from a peak torque output standpoint than in all the other commuter Subarus. So I don't understand that. I don't understand why it would actually be worse from a power standpoint. I mean, yes, the horsepower is a little bit better. In the other versions of that motor, it makes 260 horsepower. So we are up 11 horsepower over an Ascent. But, I just, I think they could have also increased the torque. Is that too much to ask? I don't know. It also dropped the red line. It went from like a 6,700 RPM red line in the old 2-liter to now about 6,100 it appears, although I didn't see an exact red line listed, but just looking at the tach there, looks like it's about 6,100. And so yes, the stranger thing too is that while Subaru says that the power and torque curves are wider and flatter than before, it still makes the same peak power at an identical 5,600 RPMs to the old motor. So it's not like the power comes on any sooner or anything as far as peak power. They also say it makes the same peak torque from the same exact 2,000 RPM to 5,200 RPM as the old motor. So as far as peak values are concerned, it isn't improved at all. It makes the same power at the same, amounts of, rev range there. So that's interesting. Now, they did say that elsewhere in the rev range, you will have improvements. So we're talking below 2,000 RPMs, maybe you'll see something. And then above 5,600 RPMs, I guess you'll see something there. Or, and elsewhere in the power band there, you'll see some improvements. I'm sure there's got to be some improvements with the extra displacement. That just doesn't go to nothing. But, just as far as those peak numbers go on paper, this is just like a head scratcher to me. I just honestly, this is even worse than I was expecting. And, I didn't have high expectations. But anyway, so that's kind of a shocker there too. We also don't know the curb weight for the new WRX. They did not reveal curb weight here in this press release. So if it gains a substantial amount of weight, this could actually technically, theoretically, be slower than the old WRX. Now, we'll have to wait to see about that. I can't say that just yet, but it is entirely possible given the numbers and the information that we have currently. So we'll have to see about that. I would love to see them lose weight, but, with the vehicle, being larger and stuff, I don't know. So anyway, that is, as far as the engine goes. The transmissions are also another interesting case here. So thankfully, a manual is still offered on most trims, not all trims anymore. We'll get to that here in a second. But first off, the manual, Subaru says it gets optimized gear ratios and has been refined for improved shift quality. Cool. Sounds good. Thank you for keeping the manual around. That's awesome. But then they talked about the new Subaru Performance transmission and never once said the word CVT in their entire press release, even though it is a CVT. Make no mistake, but they will not use the word CVT and insist on calling this an SPT instead, Super Performance Transmission. So anyway, it's a new transmission supposedly, and they say this new transmission has 30% faster upshifts from second to third and 50% faster downshifts from third to second. And I guess there's smaller improvements for other gears, but they didn't specify if, what those improvements are. They did say it has a 444-to-1 final drive now for a punchier feel as well. And they also said the ratio coverage range has been enlarged too, and it has an 8-speed manual mode as well for that CVT for those ratios. And okay, so that would be fine if the CVT was just an option and, hey, for people that want it, go for it. Even though only about 25% of WRX buyers actually do go for that CVT, amazingly. It used to just be an option and that was it. But now there's still going to be the base, premium, and limited trims. But there's a new GT trim that's added to the top of the range. And that GT trim has everything that enthusiasts want. And it is CVT only. So I'm going to explain all the things you're missing out on if you don't go for a CVT WRX. So this GT trim gives you multi-mode adaptive dampers. The first time you've ever had adaptive dampers on a WRX, only with a CVT. And so supposedly they're great. They have various different modes and stuff. Also, you get sportier Recaro seats only in that GT trim. Only with a CVT do you get Recaro seats, at least as of right now. I hope that there's new trims down the road or something, you get Recaros in a manual at a later date. But as of 2022 WRXs, it's Recaros only with a CVT. It's almost oxymoronic, but anyway, so theoretically the best handling WRX will be the CVT equipped ones. And that's, again, Subaru themselves said 75% of WRX buyers go for the manual. 75%. So why not at least offer the manual for the GT trim? If you know that 3/4 of your buyers go for the manual, then why would you automatically exclude those people from getting the top trim, which is probably the highest as far as a profit margin standpoint and stuff as well? It just doesn't seem to make sense to me. Another head scratcher here. And I mean, do they actually expect manual loyalists to switch to a CVT? Like, I could see, okay, you can tempt some manual fans away with a really good dual clutch. Or maybe, a ZF 8-speed automatic or something that's really good with its shifts. but a CVT. Really? I don't know. So it's kind of hard to believe. But anyway, apparently Autoblog said during their ride along that it has dual clutch-like shifts with how quick they are. And I'm sure it's probably quicker, with the shifting and stuff, but is it going to feel as good as a dual clutch? I have a hard time believing that. Especially whenever you're not doing manual shifting, where it's going to just feel mushy like every other Subaru CVT does. So we'll have to see about that. They did add a new transmission oil cooler to put up with more abuse, at least, whenever you are manually shifting it. So that's good, but still, why? Just offer the manual, Anyway, also, by the way, the cherry on top is the drive mode selector, which is another really cool new feature here for the WRX. It gives you sport plus modes, all that kind of stuff, and also an individual mode, so you can actually go in and change the damper settings, the all-wheel drive settings, the transmission settings, since again it's a CVT only. All that stuff, all those drive mode things are only on that GT trim and only with the CVT, obviously because of the GT trim. So, again, you can't even get all the cool drive modes unless you go for a CVT. I don't believe you can change the steering feel, throttle response, none of that stuff in the manual WRXs, even though that's something that manual versions of basically every one of its competitors offers. Nothing here. So yes, that is the GT trim. Now, again, I know there's been a lot of negative here. There's also a lot of really good improvements, especially to the handling, it sounds like. Even if you can't get the better adaptive dampers, on the manuals, it seems like there's a lot of other handling improvements here, even for the manuals. So, it's, of course, on Subaru's new global platform, so that should give you lots of ride and refinement improvement. Switches, all great. The body's torsional rigidity has also been improved by 30%, and there's 20% more roll stiffness thanks to sway bars that are mounted directly to the body now. A new dual pinion electric power steering rack is supposed to improve steering feel because the linkage is actually connected directly to the rack, they say. And then wheel and tire sizes are the same as before, meaning you get 235 wide 17-inch wheels and tires on the base model and 245 wide 18-inch wheels and tires on the other trims. They all get Dunlop SP Sport Max GT summer tires, so if you ever plan to drive your Subaru in the snow, crazy idea, I know, but if you ever do plan to do that with its standard all-wheel drive that they are marketing, you have to budget in extra money for snow tires or budget in extra money to swap your summer tires to all seasons. It'd be nice to at least offer an all-season option. That's what most other vehicles, especially those vehicles with all-wheel drive, offer an all-season tire option. But here, it's all summer tires only. So keep that in mind when you're putting your order in. If you're somewhere where you ever get any kind of snow, you're going to have to budget in for new wheels and tires. So that's the handling stuff. But like I said, some nice improvements there. And so that's all really good news. And on the inside, it also gets some nice improvements here. So primarily, there is an 11.6-inch vertical touchscreen that you get in some of the other newer Subarus as well. And it comes on all but the base model. The base model will still get two separate screens, just like the base versions of the Legacy and the Outback do. But it still has standard Apple CarPlay and Android Auto on any screen you get, although unfortunately it isn't wireless in either screen, it seems. It's still only wired in, which is something that, again, some other competitors with their newest versions do offer the wireless. This does not. Also on the GT trim, you can also get a new 11-speaker Harman Kardon stereo that has a 504-watt equivalent amplifier. So it's not actually 504 watts, but essentially that's what it is putting out with this new speaker system. So that's nice. If you're okay with the CVT, then you get the nice stereo. So that's another interesting thing there. It's also important to note that you can't get full leather seats anymore in the WRX. So base and premium still come with cloth, of course, but the Limited now gets ultra suede seats as the only option, and the Recaros that you get on the GT trim also are ultra suede only. I guess maybe some people don't mind not having leather, but at least me personally, I'm not a huge fan of the suede stuff because it just doesn't breathe great in the summer when you're sweaty and stuff. It just sticks to your back, and not a huge fan of that. I know a lot of people love Alcantara seats and stuff, so that's just my subjective thing, but it just would be nice to again offer the option to people, but no options here. It's all ultra suede or cloth. It also appears that the seats are only heated, even in the highest trims, you would think maybe they would have some cold seats or something like you get on, like a loaded version of an Outback or something like that, but No cooled seats available. That's also something that some competitors do offer, and unfortunately you can't get that here in this. I also didn't see any mention of a heated steering wheel, which is another feature that most other competitors do offer. Now the steering wheel is new and has a flat bottom to it, which is nice, but I don't believe it's heated, which is also, again, for the crowd that drives these all through the winter, you know, that would be a nice thing to have. I'm not sure, maybe that's something they will add and they just didn't mention it here, but seems like a strange exclusion if they don't have that. It also sticks with analog gauges, which is another slightly interesting thing, because in Japan, Subaru does have a digital cluster, and I would assume maybe for these top trims you would have gotten that, but unfortunately it's analog gauges all across the board, but not a huge deal there. But you know, just another feature that, again, stuff like the new GTI and Golf R do have those digital gauges as standard, actually, and so just interesting little differences there too. Interior space should also be improved thanks to the new platform and the new dimensions and stuff, which, by the way, I didn't see exact dimensions for the new WRX, so I can't really do a direct comparison, but I'm assuming it should be improved over the old car, or at least the same as the old car, which was pretty good as far as interior space. So but yeah, no exact numbers there to share on that. But anyway, the last thing to mention is production starts in January and it'll be going on sale sometime early next year, so probably count on maybe February or so for them to start showing up at dealers. We don't have any pricing yet for these either, so we can't discuss that. I'd say it's safe to assume it's going to be more expensive than the 2021 WRX, which started at about $27,500, so be prepared for this thing to be up close to 30 even for a base model, but we'll have to see again and, you know, judge pricing once that comes out. But yeah, so that is all the details we have currently on the 2022 WRX and all of my thoughts on it. You know, like I said, some nice improvements, but also a lot of head-scratching choices here. And we'll have to see what they do with the STI, you know, coming down the road here. I think according to the leaked timeline, that should be coming around this time next year. But we'll have to see, you know, when that actually does arrive and see if that, you know, how much that improves on the old STI. But definitely temper your expectations, you know, based on, you know, the changes they made here for the new WRX as far as the powertrain and stuff like that. But anyway, that's all of my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts on the 2022 WRX in the comments below. Thank you guys very much for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Take care.